All right, let's get right into it. Have you ever wondered if it's actually possible to take 50 years of a brilliant leader's life, all of their most profound wisdom, their highest highs and their lowest lows, and distill it all down into one short, focused explainer? Well, the answer is a resounding yes. Today, we're looking at a philosophy that promises a truly explosive transformation in how you view your career, how you handle your setbacks, and how you value your limited time on Earth. It's all derived from Steve Jobs' completely legendary 2005 Stanford commencement address. And thanks to Deepak Dayea's excellent Hindi translation, this mindset shift has been opened up to a much wider audience, ensuring nobody misses out just because of a language barrier.
So here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, an explosive life transformation. Second, connecting your life's dots. Third, finding love through loss. Fourth, death as life's invention. And finally, stay hungry, stay foolish.
Section 1. An explosive life transformation. 50 years of wisdom in 15 minutes.
You know what's truly fascinating? It's Jobs' absolute knack for simplicity. I mean, standing there in front of graduates at literally one of the most prestigious universities in the world, he just stripped away all the usual pomp and circumstance. He ironically noted he had never actually graduated from college himself and simply said, "I want to tell you 3 stories from my life." That's it. No big deal. He wasn't there to give some complex academic lecture, right? He was there to share raw, lived experience.
Part 2. Connecting your life's dots, trusting the journey.
So Jobs titled his first story Connecting the Dots, and it takes us right back to Act 1 of his life. This is where a young Steve Jobs makes the completely terrifying decision to drop out of Reed College after just 6 months. See, he was the adopted son of working-class parents. His adoptive mother wasn't a college graduate, and his adoptive father hadn't even finished high school. When he realized his insanely expensive tuition was draining their entire life savings, and he still had no clue what he wanted to do with his life, he just dropped out. But man, that decision brought a harsh reality. Dropping out meant losing his dorm room, so he slept on the floor in his friends' rooms. He returned Coke bottles for 5-cent deposits just to buy food. And every single Sunday, he'd walk 7 miles across town just to get one good free meal at the Hare Krishna temple. It was definitely a struggle, but dropping out freed him to stop taking required classes and only drop in on the ones he actually cared about.
Okay, so let's see how this actually builds. At the time, Reed College offered some of the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Since he didn't have to take normal classes anymore, Jobs dropped in on a calligraphy class. He learned all about serif and sans serif typefaces, and what makes great typography so historically artistic and beautiful. Which, let's be totally honest here, had absolutely zero practical application for a jobless college dropout at the time. But exactly 10 years later, when he was designing the very first Macintosh computer, it all came rushing back to him. He designed it all into the Mac. It became the first computer with beautiful typography, proportionally spaced fonts, and multiple typefaces. If he had never dropped out, he would never have dropped in on that class, and personal computers might not even have the beautiful typography they do today. It's like a giant puzzle.
And that brings us to a crucial point. You simply cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. Think about your own life for a second. You have to trust that the dots you're making right now will somehow connect in your future. Jobs emphasized that you absolutely must trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever it is. Believing the dots will eventually connect is what gives you the courage to follow your heart, even when it leads you completely off the well-worn path. That is what makes all the difference.
Section 3. Finding love through loss, resilience and passion. Now we hit a dramatic shift into Act 2 of his life. This is a story about achieving unbelievable success, only to have it ripped away in the most public way imaginable. Let's look at this 10-year timeline. Jobs was lucky enough to find what he loved doing pretty early on. At age 20, he and Steve Wozniak started Apple in his parents' garage. They worked incredibly hard. By the time he turned 30, they had just released their absolute finest creation, the Macintosh. And then, later that very same year, he was fired. I know, wait, how do you get fired from the company you literally started? Well, as Apple grew, they hired a CEO to help run things. But eventually, their visions for the future completely diverged. The board of directors sided with the CEO, and at just 30 years old, Jobs was out. The entire focus of his adult life was just gone.
To really put the magnitude of this loss into perspective, just look at this number. $2 billion. In just a single decade, Apple had grown from 2 guys tinkering in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. That is an astronomical peak to fall from.
And the fall was brutal. Being fired wasn't just losing a job. It was a devastating, highly public failure.
For a few months, he didn't even know what to do. He literally thought about running away from Silicon Valley entirely. But something slowly began to dawn on him. He still loved what he did. The turn of events at Apple hadn't changed that one bit. He had been rejected, sure, but he was still in love. So he decided to start over.
Jobs realized something profound. Getting fired from Apple was actually the best thing that could have ever happened to him. The heavy burden of being successful was suddenly replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. It freed him to enter one of the absolute most creative periods of his entire life. Over the next 5 years, he started a company called Next, another company called Pixar, which, by the way, went on to create the world's first computer-animated feature film, Toy Story, and he met a wonderful woman who would become his wife. Eventually, in a crazy twist of fate, Apple bought Next, Jobs returned to Apple, and the technology they developed at Next is literally at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. Jobs' core message here? Work is going to fill a massive part of your life. The only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. As he simply put it, don't settle.
Section 4. Death as Life's Invention. Confronting Mortality.
We are now entering the most intimate act of our explainer. Jobs' third story slows things way down to focus on a deeply philosophical reflection on confronting our own mortality. When Jobs was 17, he read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." It made a huge impression on him. For the next 33 years, he would look in the mirror every single morning and ask himself directly, "If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today?" Whenever the answer was no for too many days in a row, he knew he needed to change something. Remembering that he would be dead soon was the most important tool he ever encountered for making big life choices.
And this wasn't just some abstract theory for him. About a year prior to the speech, he actually came face to face with death. At 7:30 in the morning, a scan showed a tumor on his pancreas, an organ he admitted he didn't even know he had at the time. His doctors told him it was almost certainly an incurable type of cancer, and he had roughly 3 to 6 months to live. They advised him to go home and get his affairs in order, which, as we all know, is doctor code for preparing to die. He lived with that death sentence all day long. But that evening, he had a biopsy. They put an endoscope down his throat, into his stomach, and into his intestines to get cells from the tumor. When the doctors examined the cells under a microscope, they literally started crying. It turned out to be a very rare form of pancreatic cancer that is entirely curable with surgery. He had the surgery, and he survived.
Having stared death right in the face, Jobs came to a pretty stark realization. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there, yet death is the destination we all share. And that, he argued, is exactly as it should be. Death is very likely the single best invention of life. It is life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Just think about that for a second. Right now, you are the new. But someday, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. It sounds a bit dramatic, but it is the ultimate truth that strips away all our ego, all our fears of failure, all our pride, and all external expectations.
Part 5. Stay hungry, stay foolish. The ultimate takeaway.
All right, this brings us to the real climax of this explainer. The ultimate takeaway from 50 years of an explosive, boundary-pushing life, distilled into a final plea for the audience. Jobs channeled a really intense urgency here. Because death is inevitable, and because you are already naked in the face of it, there is absolutely no reason not to follow your heart. He urged the graduates not to be trapped by dogma, which is just living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice, your own heart, and your intuition. Somehow they already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary.
He closed his speech by bringing up a farewell message from a publication he loved in his youth called the Whole Earth Catalog. The message perfectly encapsulated how to live an authentic life. On the one hand, you must stay hungry. You have to maintain a fierce ambition, a drive to do big work, and an insatiable appetite for what's next. But on the other hand, you must simultaneously stay foolish, meaning you need the humility of a beginner. Because if you think you already know everything, you can't learn anything new. Balancing that immense hunger with that grounding foolishness is the absolute key to continuous growth.
Stay hungry, stay foolish. Jobs said this is what he always wished for himself, and as the graduates were heading off into the world to begin anew, it was his final, parting wish for them. It's a beautifully simple yet deeply challenging mandate to carry forward in whatever path you choose to walk.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought, derived straight from Jobs' philosophy. Look at the dots you are creating right now. Look at how you handle your own setbacks, and most importantly, look at the limited time you have left. Are you living your own life, driven by your own inner voice, or are you living someone else's? Stay hungry, stay foolish, and whatever you do, don't settle until you find the answer.